just think we need to find a way to get sustainable housing for people.
I think a lot of funding is usually spent on things that are quick fixes or band-aids, so they're usually very temporary.
I see a lot of homeless adults, but then I also see their kids who were born into it.
According to the last census, thousands of people are living unsheltered on the streets of Portland, the numbers having increased by 50% since 2019. Welcome to Kids Speak Out, Oregon. Each week, I'm joined by a panel of young Oregonians to help shed some light on some major issues in the state and get their take on what needs to be done to solve some of the problems. Today, we're talking about the growing numbers of homeless people in this city here in Portland, Oregon, and what the state can do about it. We've got a great panel who's going to tell us what they think. Maybe they have some answers for us. Let's meet them right now. Mac, let's start with you. Tell us about who you are and a little something about yourself.
Hello, my name is Mac. I am a senior in high school this year. I've been born and raised in Portland, and when it's not raining a lot, I like to ride my longboard around.
Great. Max?
My name is Max. I'm 12 years old. I'm in 6th grade, and I dance competitively.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Bora. I'm an 8th grader at Lake Oswego, but I live in Portland, Oregon, and in all weather, I just like to bike.
Yeah, that's it. So you've got a lot of hills to bike on here in Portland,
Yeah.
right? And I guess in Lake Oswego, too.
Yeah.
Nice town. Elliot?
I'm Elliot, I'm 16, and I play roller derby here with the Rose City Rollers in Portland.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how about you, Simone?
I'm Simone. I'm 14. I'm in 8th grade. I was born and raised in Portland.
Abby?
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm 17. I actually was not born in Portland. I was born in Texas and then moved to upstate New York for 5 years. Then I moved back to Texas, then to Portland, then to Washington, then we're back in Portland.
And Evan?
My name is Evan, I'm 14, and I lived in Colorado, then I moved to Germany, and then I moved here. But in general, I just like to experience different cultures and travel around the world.
But obviously, because you said you would come and talk to us about homelessness, this is something that has affected you. You see it every day around you here in Oregon, and particularly here in Portland. Let's talk about that a little bit. Why do you think this problem exists in this city and has been growing, up 50% from 2019, just a few years ago? Who wants to start? All right, Abby.
I think it's probably a problem because we haven't really found a solid way to solve it. We have shelters in Portland that do have a lot of space, but one of the issues here is that a lot of people here, a lot of the homeless have pets, and you can't take your pet to a shelter, and they really don't want to part with their family, and so they're not willing to go to a shelter, which makes sense, but we haven't provided them with somewhere else to go, so they have resorted to going on the streets.
And so do you see the pets around?
I do, yes. I see a lot of people with cats and dogs. I've even seen some people with pigeons, pet pigeons, which is very interesting.
And obviously, go ahead, Simone, you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, I think also a major reason why it's increased is because of COVID and because a lot of people lost their jobs during the pandemic and ended up on the streets because they couldn't pay their rent or mortgage or something.
I think another reason that we have so many people on the streets is that Portland just isn't doing enough to keep people off the streets and to get people into sustainable housing and to help them get jobs. It's just, we're not doing enough.
What can be done? What do you think can be done?
I just think we need to find a way to get sustainable housing for people and have programs to help out people on the streets.
A lot of the issues have to do with not having enough housing that is inexpensive enough for these people to be able to stay in. Don't you think that's the problem, Mac?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to add on to that. I think a lot of funding is usually spent on things that are quick fixes or band-aids, so they're usually very temporary and they aren't very helpful to the houseless population. And I think it would be more useful if we were directing our funding towards organizations, because we've had lots of houseless organizations in the Portland area for a long time, and they've been directly dealing with this for a long time. And I think if we were to involve them more in this process, we could actually create some more concrete solutions.
Well, since you guys see this often as you go to school, driving around the city or countryside, you see a lot of homeless people. Have you ever thought, why? Why are they homeless? How did they get there? Anybody have any
I know
ideas?
some people choose to be homeless by choice, and so it's kind of hard for those people, especially if they're on like drugs or any other things. But I think we just need to find a way where they can get a job and they can find a shelter.
Do you think that most of them would like to find jobs?
Some of them are just homeless by choice, and I think everyone wants a job, everyone wants to make money, but yeah, I think everyone would want to find a job.
Any other ideas about how people end up homeless? Abby?
I think a lot of people are born into it. Whenever I live in downtown Portland, so I walk around a lot, and I see a lot of homeless adults, but then I also see their kids who were born into it. So I think it's not always choice. I think it sometimes is like just your circumstances, or COVID, maybe you lost your job and you truly can't do anything about it. So.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of circumstances that go into it. I don't think it's ever just like one thing that happens. I know people can end up homeless for mental health reasons, or just because they like cannot keep affording rent. I don't know, I think there's a lot of different reasons that can go into it.
Do they scare you, Bora?
Sometimes, yeah, when I'm walking around, it can be intimidating. But, you know, most of them just, I think, like some of them are kind of like doing drugs and stuff, and they need like mental help. So it's important to get them like housing, but it's also important to know that some of them like need mental care, and like they need to get provided with more mental health.
Do you go out of your way to cross the street so you don't have to pass by them?
No, not really. I mean, it can be intimidating sometimes, but I don't really mind it also.
Abby?
I often do. Sometimes when I'm walking around, the whole sidewalk on a block is completely lined with tents. There's nowhere to walk. So you either have to go into the street, which is dangerous because of all the cars, or you have to cross the street and go to a different block, which is not the greatest situation. So.
And what about children? Do you see people with kids living in the tents as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, yeah, people are born into it. Like, they can't, a lot of people just can't help being homeless. Like, it really is a crisis.
But you think that it's by choice, or you think that they just can't find work?
No.
Can't think of what else to do, or go home if there is a home somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think it's by choice. I think that people, like the circumstances of their life have put them into that situation where they're forced to be on the streets because of lack of resources for people that don't have access to housing.
What about at school? Do you see any homeless kids who actually live on the streets who come to school, go to your schools? No? Where do you think that they go? If you know that there are kids living out there on the street, where do you think they're going during the day?
I think maybe they're just, I don't know, trying to support each other. I know some kids do, some homeless kids do go to school, but I've also like encountered like people who like don't go to school, and since they don't go to school, they don't have an education, and so they can't really make money, and then the cycle like repeats.
Yeah, it just keeps
basically.
repeating itself. What's the answer? Do you have any answers other than finding affordable housing for them? And if they don't make any money, even affordable isn't affordable. You got an answer, Abby?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe designated just campsites. Driving around, I've seen a couple of campsites in Portland where they provide like showers and toilets and garbage. And so basically you can go and set up your tent and you can live there, but then at least you have somewhere to go and then you're not in the sidewalks. I think that could be an option. And it's not that expensive because it's really just a plot of land. So I think that could be an option.
If this exists, a place where they could go take showers and maybe live on a fairly permanent basis, should they be forced to have some kind of treatment from psychiatrists or counselors to try to see if they can move on from that situation?
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily think so. I think they should definitely have the option. I think doctors should occasionally go and visit these sites so that if people do decide they want help, then they have access to it. But I don't think it should be forced on them.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't think it needs to be forced, but I think if there's support available for people to seek out if they want to, that would be really beneficial.
But if you think they're sick and they can't make any real decisions for themselves, do you think someone should step in and try to be paternalistic about their care to try to help them move on from where they are?
I think it should be encouraged, but I mean, I don't think that they really can force them into doing something like that. But I think that they should definitely be encouraged to seek care.
Well, I'm not advocating for this, but if there was no food and no help in any way, what do you think would happen?
I really think that it just has to be encouraged for them to seek care, because I don't think it would go over well if people were forced into doing something like that.
So, do you have any answers for how we can encourage people to move on and get help so that they can figure out if they can work?
I think we should definitely highly support the option of seeking medical treatment. I think if we have like a good option of medical treatment that's going to be helpful for them, like talking to someone and seeking medical help, that would definitely be beneficial. But again, I think along with what everyone's saying, it shouldn't be forced, and it's always like you can't always force someone to get help if they don't want it. So.
And if there are homeless blocking the way to a movie theater that you want to go to, or if you go to movie theaters anymore, everybody watches at home, I guess. But if they're in your way, would you want the police to come and take them away? No.
No.
Because you think they have the right to be wherever they are and put their tents up wherever they are. And I'm not saying that I think they're wrong. I just want to hear what you feel really should be done. I know we all feel that we want to help people. We want people to be safe. We want them to be happy, but not getting in the way of your happiness or your ability to move around. But you don't mind stepping around the tents.
Well, with the police, I think a lot of the time they just tend to act very violently, and they're not fixing any issues. Like, I've heard experiences of police coming in and doing sweeps to campsites, and it doesn't solve anything. Like, people just have to move their tents other places. They have to find other places to live, and a lot of the time it just creates a bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna kick them out of there, then there has to be a backup plan. There has to be somewhere else where they can go. They can't just kick them out and then expect them to just go away. Like, they're gonna go somewhere else. So there needs to be somewhere where they can go to permanently stay.
And I think a lot of people think that Oregon is a state that cares about people. Do you think that? Is this a state, do you think this is better than, say, going to Texas? I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that. You think this is a state that says, you know, with open arms, come here and be with us because we care about people? Okay,
I'm not
Abby.
sure if it's necessarily completely in that direction, but I used to live in Texas. And so I do know that they have a very different view on homeless people there. I remember
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I remember getting into a very heated discussion with one of my friends about whether or not homeless choose to be homeless. And she completely, because she was raised that way, so she completely thought they choose to live that life and all they have to do is just take a shower and get a job and then it'll be solved. But I was like, it's not as simple as that. And so coming here, it's a very different perspective on homeless. So I think it's very interesting and different here.
Do you think that the government or you as Oregonians should come up with a way to build permanent housing for people who are homeless? Because there are some plans out there right now for that kind of thing. We are sponsored by Harbor of Hope, and that's an idea of making a wonderful place where the homeless can live and gain some acceptance and feel good about themselves, and maybe that would be a way to help them to move out of homelessness. But yes, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I was thinking if if there was organizations that build more houses, they would be able to like feel less scared if they were used to it and go to those houses. And it would also be a really great step for them to get back together and, you know, take a shower, clean themselves up, and go get a job and like apply for a job. And it'd make life easier so they could get a startup.
Yeah, maybe that would be a place where people could go looking. As we know, restaurants don't have enough people who are working there. A lot of places are closing because they don't have help. So we'll talk about that a little bit too when we come back. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.